Today I am going to be doing a top 10 list. It is going to be top 10 saddest deaths from the TV shows that I watch. And there's actually quite a few of them. I'm actually shocked. I kind of was like writing them down, going through them all, and I was like, wait, okay, this person too. Oh, wait, what? I also have this person. So I have a top 10 list, and then I have like honorable mentions because I have to mention them because they were really sad, but at the same time, they didn't really make the top 10 list that I had envisioned. So the honorable mentions are Joyce Summers from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Like, that whole episode is just a cry fest. Like, just from start to finish, all you do is cry, and it's just beautifully done. The acting is amazing, and the writing is just fantastic. If you haven't watched the series, I would say don't watch that one because it may be a little out of context for the entire series, but I highly recommend it as an episode to watch if you ever do watch Buffy. That this episode is so amazing, like really amazing. So then you have Charlotte Richards from Lucifer. I bawled my eyes out when this happened. It was just like, I knew she was going to die. Like, I knew the character was going to die. I saw it coming. And yet I still sat there and I was just like, I think it was because what the show did was they put this really great song over it. So you have everyone finding out that she's dead. Meanwhile, you have Amenadiel, like, holding her and getting his wings back and bringing her up to heaven while everyone is, like, getting to see her, or, finding out that she's been killed and seeing her body. And it's just so many emotions. It's, like, one of the episodes that I straight out, like, tweeted going, if Fox cancels this show, they are horribly wrong, because this episode was, like, fantastically done. It shows what a great show this is, and I'm so glad that Netflix picked it up, and I can't wait for season 4. So I highly recommend watching not only this episode, but this series in general, because it is fantastic. So the next honorable mention are kind of two, because they're both from the same show, is Keith Scott and Dan Scott. Now, I know a lot of fans will say, like, damn, Keith Scott's death was, like, tragic and was, like, the saddest episode for them, but honestly, it wasn't. It was heartbreaking, and the episode following it, I was in tears, of course, but rewatching the series, I can watch the episodes and not cry, because, I know it's coming, I know what happens. It's still really sad, and it's just like, it's really heartbreaking for the character, because you loved this character. This character was amazing. He was the best uncle, and he was a father to one of the main characters, and he was this all-around good guy, and to see him die so early on into the series was really hard. But at the same time, his death doesn't impact me as much as it used to when I first started watching the show. And that brings us to Dan Scott, who actually, dies later on in, like, the final season, and it's kind of like his redemption storyline, and it's something that's beautifully done and beautifully told. And while do I want Dan Scott to be redeemed? Yes and no. But the way they did this redemption storyline was really great, and I'm glad that they got this chance to tell this storyline the way they did. And just seeing him die, especially when he was surrounded by family, which basically disowned him and shut him out for years after they found out what he had done. It was really touching, and I will admit that every so often I do cry, but the beginning of that episode, I cry more, and it's not because of his death, but because the characters of Nathan and Haley are reuniting for the first time this entire season after Nathan was kidnapped. So you sit there and you watch the two of them reunite, and you just can't help but, like, cry because of how beautiful that moment is. So I think I cry more for that moment than when Keith and Dan died. It's sad, but it's a fact. So the next honorable mention is Chet Hunter from Boy Meets World. And it's just, I don't know how to put this into words, but Ryder Strong does such a great job in those scenes, finding out that his dad died. You see him break down, and it's heartbreaking. And seeing Sean's reaction to his dad's death is what makes the episode and what really breaks your heart and makes you cry. And it's heartbreaking, and I think that's why I decided to put it on the honorable mentions, because, well, it's absolutely heartbreaking, but it still does make me cry. I will admit that. It still does make me cry every single time I watch. But then I know, like, a few episodes later is an episode where this group guest stars on the series, and I can't think of their names to save my life, but I look forward to that episode every single time I get to that storyline. But the whole episode of Chet Hunter is that he comes back to be in his son's lives, because he has, two sons, and he's kind of not been in either of their lives, so he comes back to be in their life, and Sean's all like, oh no, he's not going to stick around, he never sticks around. And then he gets this glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, he will, and there's this fight, and then he ends up dying. Chet ends up dying, and Sean never gets to really say goodbye or really reunite with his father the way he wanted to, and not really fix the issues, but kind of work through all the issues over the years. And then you see the very last scene, or one of the very last scenes, is birthday present. I can't remember off the top of my head if it was for Jack or if it was for Sean, but there was a birthday present, and it was from Chet. It was a family photo of Chet and his two boys, and that's when you just go, oh my god, why would you write this episode? And I'm just gonna get all teary-eyed talking about all these shows, but it's an amazing episode. And following that episode is the storyline of Joshua Matthews, and the two tie in very nicely, and it brings things back to being happier, and so it brings things back to being happier. So the next honorable mention is Mark Green from ER. And the reason why I didn't put this on the list is because there were two other deaths in the show that were a lot more traumatic for me. Well, a lot more heartbreaking for me than his death. But you still sit there and you watch him slowly fade away, as he, dies. And I will admit that episode does still make me cry. But it's the episode before that one where everyone's kind of going on with their lives. And then at the very end, they get a letter from Elizabeth Corday, who's talking about all these amazing things that Mark has done with his family and his girls. And then at the very end, you get the whole, he passed away. And just that moment alone with everyone around, makes you cry. And that's what it was. And actually, I think it was that they got the letter at the very beginning of the episode. They posted it up, and then they continued through their day. Not as if, nothing happened, but because they work in a hospital and tragedy happens and they have to continue on. But there's still, still the essence of Mark around and people still finding out that he had died and all this. But it's just like that scene, all I remember is like that scene just like really made me cry. And then to follow up that episode was the episode with Mark getting to spend time with his girls and Corday until he finally, passed away. And that, like, those two episodes really, really make what his death, like, why his death was so upsetting and impactful. Because you knew he was dying. It was one of those things where he had cancer, and while he was in remission, it ended up coming back, and he just couldn't fight it, and he didn't want to fight it, and all these things, and then he finally just accepted it that he was going to die, and he decided to spend the rest of his days with his family, and it's just really sweet, and that's one of the reasons why it's on the list. And then the final honorable mention is Prue Halliwell from Charmed. And the only reason I put this on the honorable mention is because you don't really see what happened, in a sense. Like, in the episode, it started out with them fighting the demon, the demon getting away, them going after the demon, and then getting exposed as witches to the world. And then because of that, someone ends up taking a shot at Prue and Piper gets shot, and Prue needs to get her to the hospital, but doesn't get her in time, and Piper ends up dying because of it. And so then Phoebe ends up going down to the underworld with Cole to get time reversed. So that ends up like screwing with the timetable of what happened the first time around. So we end with the episode, with the demon throwing Prue and Piper through a door. That's a lie. A wall. And then you just see the two of them on the ground, and you don't know what's happened. That's just how the season ends. So you don't know if Piper's dead, or if Prue's dead, or if Phoebe's, in the underworld and not coming back type of thing. And then the next season, which is season 4, because that was season 3, season 4 picks up with Prue was dead. Prue had died, that they couldn't save Prue. So it was kind of like you didn't actually get to see how it all went down, in a sense. Like, did they try to save her? How did certain things happen? Like, what happened before they realized that she couldn't be brought back, type of thing. But it's just the funeral. Once you get to the funeral is when you really start to cry, because it was just so beautiful, and you have Piper and Prue. Piper and Phoebe there with their father, and then you have Daryl and Leo and just all these people who were in their life and, you know, who loved her. And it's just, you can really feel the girls' pain that they're losing their sister. And it's just, it's a beautiful moment. And but because it was more about the funeral episode than her actual death, that's why I put it on the honorable mentions instead of the actual list of, you know, saddest deaths. So